this is how to use the template. On the bottom, we have the toilet GIF. You see in the timeline it's on the bottom. And then we have the avatar, which is this guy's avatar. On top of that, we have the tongue and then the P. Let me show you what the P looks like. That's the P layer. In order to isolate a layer like that, I'm pressing Alt and clicking on the eyeball, which will show only that layer. And then to show everything, I hit Alt and the eyeball, and it shows everything. And then we have the head, which is Mur's head. So in order to swap out Mur's head, it's the same thing as the old template. We open up Potato Buff and select all, edit copy, go back to the avatar, double click on the head, which opens up the actual Smart Object file, which is a PSB file. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm using my middle mouse button to do so. And we go edit and we paste buff. And we free transform buff using shift on the corner to maintain proportions. And we're going to make buff the same size as Mur. We'll put a little bit of an angle on him so that it lines up a little better. I'm using arrow keys here to dial it in. Double click on that to commit the changes. Unclick Mur. File. Save. You know all this already. And we go back to the template, and there's buff. We'll do the same thing with the avatar. I'm going to do it in a little different order. First we'll open the avatar Smart Object, and then we're going to take Lewis's avatar, or Lewis's representation, and go select all, edit copy, edit paste, and we'll make it this approximately the same size. You can make it any size you want. I mean, actually, let's just do that. Instead of resizing it like this to the same size as the avatar, we're not going to do that. I'm pressing Control Z to undo. Now, I'm going to leave him large. I press Control on this layer, and that selects all of Lewis. And we hit the crop button, and you can recrop the Smart Object, resize it, and we uncheck the avatar, file, save, and we go back and we have a large Lewis. Free transform to whatever size you want. You can make them that big. You can make them that big. We'll make them about that big. And again, I'm going to zoom in with my middle mouse button. I'm using the arrow keys to line up the tongue with Lewis, and you double click to commit those changes. Now, this action is called a scrub. So we're going to scrub the timeline just to make sure everything lines up. And the tongue looks okay. I mean, we might be able to dial it in a little better, but it looks fine. And that's pretty much it on how to do that. But if you did want to resize Lewis's head and the tongue, you click on Avatar, which is Lewis, and you Control click Tongue. In this situation, you can also shift click on tongue. So now we have both of them selected, and we can also do a transform on those and line it up differently. Now this is going to be a little more difficult because we have to make sure that the tongue actually hits the P. I mean, we may get lucky and it might work perfectly. We may have to re-transform this again. So now we scrub, and you see the tongue is to the left of the P. So we still have tongue and avatar together. So I'm just going to click the move and arrow him over a little bit. Now that should be perfect. Let's press play and see. That looks great. So that's how you can resize and move the tongue in unison with the avatar layer. Now the other thing I showed you was how to put Lewis down here having a drink. For this one, we want to uncheck the tongue because we don't want the tongue. I mean, you can leave the tongue. Maybe that'll work too. We could try it. Let's try it with the tongue. We'll do, actually, yeah, let's do it with the tongue. So we click on tongue and control click avatar. Let's make sure this is back at the beginning. It's always good practice to have this back at the beginning. And we go edit, free transform, and we put him here or so, having a drink. Make sure it lines up. Now we could leave it behind the P or in front of the P, but we're going to put the P behind it and do a mask. I'm pretty much making a wild guess to where the P comes down. So we go like this and trace around where the P goes in. Now on the avatar layer, we're going to make a mask using, oops, sorry about that. I'm pressing Control Z for undo. I'm going to make a mask on the avatar. So I select the inverse, because right now just this part of Lewis is selected. I want to select the opposite. So we go select inverse and we create a mask. Now the P goes in his mouth. And let's see how it looks with the tongue. I'm not sure how it'll look with the tongue. It might look horrible. We press play. I use spacebar for play. I'm not sure I like the tongue there. Let's put the tongue behind the P and see how that looks. I'm not sure. Let's just skip the tongue. And we'll have him peeing in Lewis's mouth. That's how it's done. That looks almost perfect. I got that mask really good. Anyway, there's a lot of things you can do with this. Let's do Buff's head bouncing up and down. So we go to the head layer and we make a, what are these things called? Keyframe. At the start, we'll make one at the end so that he goes back to his position. And we'll make another one just somewhere in the middle. And here, I'm just going to use a shift arrow up. Oops, I'm sorry. We're on the head layer. We want to make sure we have the move tool. So now we're just going to arrow up 1, 2, 3, 4 times. I'm picking a random number and hoping that looks good. And we do the same here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's see how that looks. Maybe that'll look good. It's moving a little too much. So let's go back here and just arrow down 1 time. And we'll do the same here. We'll arrow down 1 time. There we go. That looks a lot better. Let me put this so you can see it a lot better. And now we have Buff peeing into Lewis's mouth and the tongue sticking out. Let's do this with the tongue. Let's take the tongue and edit, free transform. We'll rotate it a little bit so it looks like he's really licking piss. I guess that's better, but you can play with it and see, you know, if you want the tongue or don't want the tongue. But that's about it. That's quite a few ways of showing you how to use this template we made.